There. Hey, let's see. Let's see this. Here we go. Hey, just messing with you. Welcome to Geekscape. I'm Jonathan London, your host. If this is your first Geekscape, well, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I almost wasn't here. A lot of stuff going on this week. I get married on Friday, in case you didn't get the memo. But you're still getting your Geekscape. Not only are you getting this, the Werewolf by Night Geekscape special with Ian Kerner, but if you check the feed, you've got an interview with Scott Adkins, the action star himself, on the feed, talking about his brand new movie, Accident Man 2, Hitman's Holiday, which comes out on video this Friday. Listen to that episode because, first off, it's based on a comic that was created, a British comic created by one of the co-creators of Judge Dredd. Also, the two people directing the movie, he met them on Doctor Strange when he was doing stunts in Doctor Strange 1. One of the directors was the stuntman, and then the guy was like, hey, I got this idea for a film, and they started talking about films, and he introduced him to his brother, who's the director, and it's awesome. We talk a lot of nerdy stuff, plus action movies, so listen to that episode. What else? Well, this is the Werewolf by Night Geekscape special. We're going to be talking pretty in depth about it. So if you haven't seen the 1 hour special that Disney just put up on Disney Plus, it's a lot of fun. Go watch it. And I've got Ian Kerner here to talk about it. Doesn't mean we're not going to be back right after the wedding to talk some She-Hulk, because that's wrapping up this week. But you know what? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just start the show and go from there. Sound good? Let's go. Yeah, all right, we're back on this Geekscape. We got this Werewolf by Night special. There's so much Geekscape coming down the pipe at you. I'm like, wait, what episode is this? Who am I? Am I interviewing somebody? What's happening? Who do I have on the show? I really hope you enjoyed the Finn Jones episode last week, talking about Iron Fist. I did not prompt that at all. I wanted to talk about Game of Thrones and maybe Iron Fist later on, but I didn't get a chance. Finn just busted out talking about how he wants to play Danny Rand again. And if you haven't heard that, like, what is going on? Like, go listen to it. It was pretty awesome and incredibly candid to hear him talk about the things that were wrong with season 1 and how they really worked hard to course correct. And I don't need to pimp it anymore. Go listen to it. But I will pimp this. If you want, if you're enjoying your Geekscape, please share it with your friends. Hit that share button, share it with your friends. You know how we do this. If you're here listening, like our good friend Jason Elliott in there, who says in the comments, Scott Adkins is awesome. I don't got to prompt him to go and share this with his friends and say, hey, listen to this Geekscape podcast. It's awesome. And I'm pretty sure after he listens to the Scott Adkins conversation, he's going to go leave that 5-star review on his podcatcher and tell other people to listen to Geekscape. So, okay. I'm doing a lot of checking this week because we get married on Friday. Heidi and I do. She'll be on the show soon to talk about it. So please forgive me if I'm double checking a lot of stuff. But let me just bring Ian on. We're going to be talking about Werewolf by Night quite a bit. It's up on Disney Plus right now. I think it's a lot of fun, but there will be spoilers in this conversation, so I'm warning you. Spoilers. All right, Ian, let's bring you in here. Let's talk about Werewolf by Night. What a treat this was. I think we can both agree.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
That's all he's going to say. All right, guys, that was Ian Kerner, everybody. Ian, are you as distracted as me?
I mean, different reasons, but yeah, we both got a lot going on this week, right?
So Ian calls me, and I'm not lying, about 12 minutes before we're supposed to be talking to you, right? Well, let's just say 12 minutes ago.
No, it was 15 minutes. Realize
15 minutes ago.
7 minutes away. So
Ian lives 7 minutes away, but he calls me 15 minutes ago to say, hey, man, we might have a problem. I'm like, oh, I don't like that 15 minutes before we broadcast. And he says, AT&T is scheduled to come and work on the internet like right now. Ian's like installing a pool in the backyard. There's lots of cables and stuff underground. There's all sorts of stuff you got to check.
Yeah.
They're digging in the ground. They might be unplugging his Geekscape. So Ian calls me and says, hey, I don't know what to do, dude. The internet people are coming over and I may not have internet to do Geekscape. And I just found out about it. This is 15 minutes ago, 16 now, if you're listening. And I told Ian, get in the car. We'll both be sitting here in the Geekscape office, which is just a bunch of wedding storage at this point. And Ian and I are going to sit here amongst a bunch of wedding stuff and do the episode for you in person. And it didn't happen. The cable company canceled. Ian went home. I rewired everything. I hope you can hear me, Geekscapists. And holy crap, we're going to talk some Werewolf by Night, but not without some heart attack. So it wasn't without fear, okay? If Werewolf by Night's what you're into.
So much going. Listen, here's the thing. So Werewolf by Night, I mean, stylistically, it's fantastic. It's really a lot of fun. Obviously, we'll get into some of the stuff about how it's true to comics or not. I think that they did some really interesting things, bringing some different properties together. Some stuff they went with, just made up their own thing, and they always do. The MCU always does its own version of stuff, though. Personally, I feel like they might have, the ancillary characters were all made up. And a part of me feels like it's a missed opportunity. Why not have done, characters that, even like sometimes they dig really deep into some like really major, obscure stuff. And I think that's one of the great things about it. So I was a little surprised they didn't do that here.
Well, there were a lot of opportunities and we'll pick through them and we'll see maybe who you think should have been introduced. But let's take it from the top. Right now, we got a couple of questions or comments. Craig Robinson says, hey, good evening. I enjoyed the special presentation, as did both Ian and I.
Absolutely.
It was awesome. He also says, congrats on the upcoming wedding. I'm rotting for you. That's a throwback to a joke in the film that is awesome. And Jim says, hey, Unsub Bot failed to derail the proceedings once again. Well, who knows? There's still a conversation to be had. So I loved the movie. I think we're into this. And Heidi loved it too. And from the beginning, I love that they shot it in that universal. They shot it in color, but then they put it in that universal classic style.
It's funny, people are calling out as a Hammer tribute, but to me, it felt much more classic Universal than Hammer.
Absolutely. I didn't think of Hammer at all.
No.
I think Michael Giacchino was thinking of the classic Universal movies.
Yeah, from the 30s and 40s. You Bela Lugosi Dracula, and Lon Chaney Wolfman, and
there wasn't anything
Boris
that was
Karloff,
really
Frankenstein.
60s in this, 50s, 60s in this.
That's how I felt. Yeah,
this was
and
definitely
also black and white because the Hammer films were in color.
They were in color, folks. Hey, if you're gonna geek right. We will.
Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, Dracula and Van Helsing. I mean, still, as a kid, my favorite. Those were awesome.
Yeah, but those Hammer films were in color. So we open up and we've got this character, Jack Russell. He's Werewolf by Night. How much does this? He's been invited to this kind of like it's like a mausoleum. It's like it's a estate, and it's run by the Bloodstones. We find out, and the person who owns it, who is here we go, Ulysses Bloodstone. He's a popular comic character in Marvel Comics. He's been kind of nascent in the 80s, but in the 70s he was
been dead.
A pretty big part of it.
He's been dead for a while.
And spoilers, he's dead in this too, but he's invited a bunch of monster hunters to his estate to hunt for this thing called the Bloodstone. Well, the reward is the Bloodstone if they can hunt down this beast. Am I setting this up right?
Yeah. But what I thought was interesting about this, the choice to make Ulysses Bloodstone dead already, I mean, listen, there's a timing thing. Elsa Bloodstone, for me, is a much better, much cooler character.
She was in Marvel versus Capcom. Like, she's been in a lot of the transmedia stuff. She's a very cool
character, but the thing is Ulysses Bloodstone was around in the comics for a very long time. They finally killed him off, and as a character, he's supposed to be around 10,000 years. He's basically Marvel's version of Vandal Savage, except he's not a bad guy.
Okay.
So it's a very similar thing with a meteor fell, and so the Bloodstone is actually this meteor that ends up being extra dimensional and having to do with like this an attempted, extra dimensional invasion and mystic energies and all this stuff. But the bottom line is that he has this bloodstone. It gave him powers. It gave him immortality and strength and some psychic abilities. He's around for 10,000 years. And I mean, over the years, usually retcon, they've done things where they've had him like, they said, like he was part of the American Revolution, but a Captain Steve Rogers, who's an ancestor of Steve Rogers, is the one that convinced him to be part of it. And he saved his life. So if not for him, Steve Rogers never would have been Captain America. When they did that thing about the 1959 Avengers, he's a member.
Sure.
And by the way, and that, by the way, I thought is cool because, the rumors are that the Blade movie is going to take place in the 50s. And that's the first time we've seen that Blade was around and active in the 50s. So
in that storyline with Ulysses Bloodstone. And I guess if you're going to do that, Ulysses Bloodstone can be a member of that team.
Absolutely can show up.
Ian, real quick, what are you tapping on next to your microphone? I think you're flipping a pen or something. No. I'm hearing like a click, clack, click, clack, clack.
Maybe I'm in my, I don't know. Maybe I might have been like hitting my foot or something.
Hands where I can see them, Ian. I'm kidding.
Is it still happening?
No, it's good now. It's good now. Finn
I
was
like rocking the chair or something.
Yeah, Finn was flipping his keys, and I was like, dude, I got to tell you to stop that. Okay, so Elsa Bloodstone's invited to be a part of it. She's kind of like the disgraced, like errant daughter who's been detached from her father. And the other hunters are like, what are you doing here? We're actual hunters. You're the daughter that really never was. We're gonna take it. But then you've got Jack Russell's character. How do the other hunters not know about him? They've all been invited to hunt this creature.
So Jack Russell, listen, we're led to believe they all give their resumes and how many monsters they've killed, and he apparently has killed so many. And that's the thing is Jack Russell in the comics is a monster hunter. I mean, he's not a werewolf all the time, so it's not necessarily an untrue statement. It's not clear to me when I watch that. Did he go undercover and he's not who he says he is because he's trying to rescue Ted? Or is he still who he said he is, still trying to rescue Ted? Unclear.
Okay. Well,
I'm inclined to go the latter.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like he's a bit undercover to rescue Ted.
But I still think that he still has, that he is a monster hunter, has killed lots of monsters. I think that's still
absolutely. And the one thing too, Geekscape, is we learned pretty quickly that the thing that they're hunting is Man-Thing, which is a major Marvel character. At least I think so. He's recently been in Fantastic Four. He has a huge power set.
Marvel 2, he goes back to crossovers with so many characters, and in particular, they do this thing with Man-Thing is the guardian, the nexus of all realities. So we start getting the multiverse stuff. Man-Thing can show up and be a very big deal if they choose to go there.
He is the Nexus character for traversing the multiverse. And that is, obviously they went crazy in Doctor Strange 2 with the multiverse stuff. And you did get the introduction of Chthon. And that was the character that Wong was talking about. And they actually go to like the temple built by the followers of Chthon. And a lot of these horror monsters in the comics from Marvel come out of that kind of religion. But here you've got the Man-Thing. He's not really jumping realities in this one. He's getting hunted, and Jack's there to rescue him. I loved the scene between Jack and Elsa, and I loved every part of Man-Thing. And you warned me. You said Man-Thing is great. He's kind of like Groot, though, in this. Loyal to the character or not?
So here's the thing. I felt that this Man-Thing was very sentient and aware, and in the comics, Man-Thing isn't that. Or most of the time he isn't that. There was one brief point where he gets Ted Sallis's mind back. But for the most part, yes, he's just felt very Groot, that you can't understand him, and very lovable. Because Man-Thing is actually kind of sweet and innocent and, in the comics. So, but I felt this was just, he fully had like a human intelligence. There's no, the fact that he's calling him Ted shows that he's probably once human. So the Man-Thing origin in the comics is that, he's basically trying to recreate the super soldier serum. And then it gets mixed with a little bit of Kurt Connor's, the lizard's serum, as well as falling into this mystic lake, swamp, So all those things together turn him into the Man Thing. And he ends up becoming the guardian of the nexus of all realities.
Is Jack Russell's origin in the comics just a traditional werewolf story, or is that something different?
Depends on what you mean by traditional werewolf story. He's
You
not
get bit by a werewolf.
No, he's born. He's a born werewolf from an ancestor being cursed.
Oh, so it's based on a curse, and that ancestor is everybody that the ancestor gave birth to? Is the whole like lineage?
The whole lineage
werewolves?
is cursed, yeah.
Okay.
But if you think about it, you've seen that version of lycanthropy in certain things. Underworld, for instance, like the idea that it's almost like a race, but it's literally like, yeah, your descendant had it, you have it, you're a werewolf.
Okay. So you got Jack Russell, you got Elsa Bloodstone, you got Man-Thing. Those are the three Marvel characters that were from comics and things like that.
Yeah.
That I was pretty excited to see interact. When he first enters that chamber with Ulysses Bloodstone's body announcing, and that's like one of my favorite sequences where he's like in a reanimated corpse, like a machine.
Yeah.
And
animatronic, right?
It was so awesome. I think our last president was like that. He kind of presents this race to get the Bloodstone or to kill Man-Thing. And that's where I thought they kind of missed an opportunity to introduce some more monsters up on the walls or items like you can't use the Darkhold, but the Darkhold lives in that world of the occult.
Well, very much so. By the way, the person that actually put the Darkhold down on paper is Jack Russell's ancestor.
That would curse you. Yeah, that would
that's part of that. I mean, all these things tie together with the Marvel stuff, which has always been one of the great things about the Marvel books. I mean, DC as well, but I always thought Marvel did a really good job of bringing all the mythologies together and how they interconnect. Gore the Guard Butcher is actually on one of the walls.
Wait, throw that at me again.
Gore the God Butcher is on one of the walls.
The sword that corrupted him, or
no? Gore is.
That's all. If you went back and watched it again, or saw a screen grab, and it's on there.
Yeah.
So this takes place after Thor: Love and Thunder, right?
You would think. I mean, the thing is that the screen grab I saw, it's very comic accurate, but it's there. It's definitely an Easter egg.
Looks a little different than the version we just saw in the movie.
Yeah.
I like that they started out with, you see the Avengers, and the narrator says, like, hey, in this world of gods and heroes, like, there is this other corner, and it introduces you over there. It doesn't say, like, this is different. This is a separate part.
Well,
this is all together.
Here's the thing. It's like, Blade is coming, like, yes, these other things exist, so that, it's interesting. Way back when, I think we talked about this, back when we first reviewed the very first Thor movie. And the idea of, were they willing to go in on mystic stuff, and ultimately got there with Doctor Strange, right? But it was like this different thing. Even with Doctor Strange, it's this other dimensional energies thing, But that doesn't take away from the mystic thing. It can still be powered that way, right? Mm-hmm. But it's there, it exists, it's showing up,
And more so after Doctor Strange too.
Yeah.
Like a lot more so. And then when you lead into the Blade movie, I mean, the Blade movie doesn't necessarily, I mean, it can have I think a portion of it that takes place in the 1950s, or maybe the majority of it. But if they're looking at tying it into what we just saw,
well, by the way,
Blade's also a vampire, so he can be the same age in both the 50s and the
totally.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, I think WandaVision also really doubled down on this idea, right, about mysticism and this other side of the Marvel universe. Which, then Doctor Strange 2 went more all in on it. But I say that in the sense of, because you want to say Doctor Strange, but the first Doctor Strange, they had their sling rings and, and it's just other dimensional and it's magic, but it was a different kind of magic than what you see in WandaVision, right?
You need a tool for it, right? Does that make sense? Like there's like almost like a little bit of a technology base still, which is what they were doing in Thor. Right. So the other hunters that we meet, there's Jovan Verusa, who's the I guess was like
the stepmother.
The stepmother.
She doesn't exist in the comics. Elsa had a mother.
Okay.
Ulysses was involved with other women before Elsa's mother. At least I think her name was. I mean, because there was a sister that he sacrificed millennia ago that then came back semi recently. But yeah, I mean, again, he was around 10,000 years.
Did you catch that Kurt Thatcher, who's a buddy of Heidi and I's, played Jovan, who he was also the punk in Star Trek 4, who was playing the music on the
Oh
bus.
yeah.
So that's the same actor. The guy who played the music on the bus and gets like the Vulcan neck pinch is the dude who played the big, like, axe wielding hunter in this one. And the second he came on screen, every time he came on screen, Heidi's like, "It's Kirk, it's Kirk, like it's Kirk." And I'm like, "Sweetie, I know it's Kirk. It's awesome that he's doing this. That he's the man." And he played the role again in the last season of Picard. That was
I was gonna
fun.
say. Yeah, cool.
Okay, so Ian, we don't get a post-credit scene in this. Obviously, the film plays out. Ted teams up with Elsa, or Jack teams up with Elsa. They rescue, or they allow Man-Thing to escape. That comes back later when Man-Thing kind of saves them.
I loved it.
I loved it. And it's just a nice, tight, like 1 hour little story. I think it's everything that it needed to be. It didn't need a tag. I think fans were expecting like a credit tag. You do get a final and Michael Giacchino has said, like, you do get like a final, what feels like a tag. It's that last scene where they're talking about where they're going to go to dinner, like where these characters are going to go next. Where could these characters go next? I mean, obviously, if you have like the sons of, or the what are they, the Midnight Suns?
Well,
yeah, I don't know if you do that because you need
first of all,
Morbius.
It's more Legion of Monsters than Midnight Suns, and you don't need Morbius. Yes, Morbius was part of it, more the Midnight Suns and Legion of Monsters, but Werewolf by Night and Man-Thing, much more Legion of Monsters. So, and like to me, I think you go there more than you go Midnight Suns for many reasons. Again, with Blade is more Midnight Suns.
I think I know what the clicking is.
Yeah,
it might be your headphone strap when it's clicking against something. So yeah, that just happened. There it is. That's okay.
You know what it is? I think it was hitting my keyboard.
It's okay. Yeah, as long as you're cognizant of it. Yeah,
I just wrapped it up in the mouth. Anyway,
it took me a little bit of detective work of my own. I should hunt audio issues. If you listen to Geekscape, you know that's not something I'm qualified for. Okay, so talk to me about the Legion of Monsters, because I know about the Midnight Suns. There's a brand new Midnight Suns comic that's out. There's a video game coming out next year on the Midnight Suns. Did you know that? Like, they're going all in on this Midnight Suns stuff.
Is that the one that's spelled SUNS?
Yes. So it used to be SONS now because it's got somebody like Elsa Bloodstone on the team, as well as Colossus's sisters on the team. It's got a ton of women on the team as well. Now it's the Midnight Suns, like the sun in the sky. And there's like a video game coming out next year of it. They're going all in, and it seems like a lot of it's based around both Wolverine and Blade. That's not this team, as you're saying. I don't recall who the Legion of Monsters are, other than an Avengers like kind of monster team that they had in the 70s. Can you tell me about them?
There was a Legion of Monsters in like mid 70s, like 76, something like that. And then they did that again in like 2010. And they go back and forth. Most recently, like they had Man-Thing and Howling Commandos, which was a take on the original Sergeant Fury and Howling Commandos, but it's Dum Dum Dugan, who was actually an LMD of Life Model Decoy of Dum Dum Dugan, leading a team of monsters. And you have the Frankenstein's monster, and like you have this amphibian thing, and
that's
Werewolf by Night. And
the amphibian thing is the name of that. Manphibian.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really stretching there in the 70s. Like, what do we call it?
But by the way, Howling Commander's book was fun.
Yeah, I didn't read it.
Yeah, it's a fun book. But I know. Here's a cool Man-Thing tidbit. Bobby Morse was originally introduced as a scientist with Man-Thing. Goes on to become Mockingbird. Yeah.
And so how closely were they kind of taking from Swamp Thing when they were creating Man-Thing?
I think that Man-Thing and Swamp Thing is another example of, just like with Thanos and Darkseid, about them being like right at the same time, like literally like months apart kind of thing. Like I think it was in the early 70s. I have to check on that. I'm pretty sure that's. Take a look real quick.
Did you know that there was a British Dennis the Menace introduced within like a week of the American Dennis the Menace?
No.
Yeah. So I found that out.
Man-Thing was introduced in May of 1971.
Okay.
I think he actually is before Swamp Thing.
Okay. So there's that. Now, what about Swamp Thing? When was Swamp Thing introduced? We got May of 1971 versus.
in July of 71.
Okay, so 2 months later.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think that's enough time to go to publication and get ripped off.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's one of those weird things. Now, I've been part of conversations about this stuff in the past, or you start thinking about like comic writers know each other. They were all in New York. People drank together, whatever else, like hard to say. Because I think it was Len Wein had created Swamp Thing, and
Jerry Conway.
Jerry Conway created, yeah. And I mean, those guys definitely knew each other.
Yeah, they definitely knew each other. And Gary Conway, I'm actually talking to LA Comic Con. They may be doing something else, but I'm trying to see if we can get Gary Conway at LA Comic Con to do a Geekscape or a panel or something, because he created the Punisher. Yeah. I mean, he was a huge part of this mid 70s thing. And not only that, but we should. Well, I've been reaching out to friend of friends, trying to get to see if we can work something out. Geekscape, but stay tuned. I don't know if it's going to happen. But also Moon Knight. Moon Knight was introduced in Werewolf by Night.
Yes.
So Moon Knight, is he ever coming back to the MCU first off? And is this something that could be a collab later down the road?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. We haven't heard anything,
No, we don't know if Moon Knight's ever coming back. But
yeah.
But Disney did do this brand new announcement for the expansion of their Avengers campus.
Yeah.
And this brand new ride we were talking about on the show a couple of weeks ago. There's a brand new ride that has King Thanos in it, and it's a multiverse ride that every time you take it, it has a different narrative in it. Werewolf by Night is part of that promotion. You see it in the artwork. You also see Moon Knight in the artwork, and you also see Man-Thing in that artwork. So it feels like Marvel is and Disney are kind of doubling down at least on Man-Thing and Werewolf by Night. And there's also an actor walking around the Disney park here in California that is dressed like Werewolf by Night. So it seems like Werewolf by Night, Man-Thing, you're going to see more of them.
I would expect so.
Moon Knight, who knows? And are these monsters relegated to just these 1 hour specials? Is the other thing.
Well, and here's always the tricky thing, right? With Marvel, and I think I've talked about this before, on in the podcast. I know you and I have gotten really deep in some of the connection stuff, really hopeful, and I've stopped getting overly hopeful, but getting what I'm going to say is sort of the mythology in the comics is always more complicated. Like it really relies on previous things, and they just say, listen, they write enough exposition into it that you figure out what's happened. And most people, particularly back when we were kids, if you didn't have the comic, that was it. It's not like you can go online and read what happened exactly and all this stuff. So they just told you what you missed before, and you came in years and years later. And unless you're a lot older than us, you couldn't have read the stuff when it started.
A lot of people left alive that are much older than us, Ian.
Well, but I'm saying seriously,
right.
You to have read, all the Marvel stuff when it started. I mean, just from publishing as Marvel and 62, 63. Yeah. I mean, if you really want to technically go back, because Timely and all of that, Captain America and Namor, you're going back to the early 40s.
Yeah, but even monster characters like Groot were introduced before the 1961.
Exactly. So my point is that unless you're really, there's not many people alive that could have possibly have read it, that did read it, and read all of it as it came out. But, so the thing is that a lot of stuff is built on stuff, and the Marvel stuff still builds on stuff, but, they don't really, as much as people say it's connected and you got to see all of them. And I'm a big proponent of that, of course, but they don't really rely on each other. I think we really got into it when we talked about Doctor Strange 2, and that was the disappointing thing, how that, in the one sense, if you didn't see WandaVision, you don't quite get it. But if you did see WandaVision, you feel like you've seen this already, So it's interesting. I'd like to think they've introduced these characters. They show up elsewhere, versus, and my point is, versus do they just do more of this?
Sure.
Is it a Werewolf by Night series? Is it a Man-Thing series? Is it an Elsa series?
Is it a yearly horror special? Or we also have Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special coming up that we know almost nothing about. But maybe that's a 1 hour Christmas special with the Guardians of the Galaxy that we're going to get.
Yeah. But like Elsa could easily show up, in probably Blade 2. So again, as I've heard that the first Blade takes place in the past. But they
Okay.
could easily put Ulysses in the first Blade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe. Because why even do him if they're not going to do something like that?
Do him in regards to Blade or Ulysses Bloodstone?
Ulysses.
Yeah.
Like it's very possible. I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that topic, but that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be cool, and it ultimately it's just cool to get a movie like this with the B list, or even these are kind of like DC list Marvel characters, and I like these 1 hour specials. I think that's maybe what we're going to get with the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. It might be even shorter. That'll be a ton of fun, and I think that Marvel's discovered another window through which to introduce characters to this MCU. And like you said, if we end up getting a Werewolf by Night team up later on down the road with somebody else, or they appear in another series, the audience is going to pop for that, because this has a huge audience approval rating, at least on Rotten Tomatoes. I just saw how high it was. I was like, well, that's the highest that anything on Disney Plus has been. You know what the lowest fan approval rating is on a Disney Plus Marvel show?
What?
It's fucking She-Hulk, because nerds cannot take criticism. It's like in the 30s, and it's ridiculously lower than any of the other stuff on Rotten Tomatoes.
So fucking good. We'll get into it later.
We're going to get into it this weekend, but damn, reading that, it just shows that the commentary from She-Hulk is right, and angry, like raging nerds are definitely the villain.
I'm going to try to look at some of that before we get into that.
Okay. Well, Ian, we're going to be busy, and you know what? Hopefully Man-Thing and Elsa Bloodstone and our friend Werewolf by Night are also busy, because Jim Pagarani says, when does Man-Thing team up with Howard the Duck? That's happened a ton in the comics. The possibilities are endless. We'll talk about them. I'm going to go back to wedding prep and editing. I shoot tomorrow in San Francisco, and you've got a ton of stuff going on your end. This is a nice, short and sweet Geekscape talking about Werewolf by Night. But I think we covered all the bases.
I think so. I mean, look, Werewolf by Night as a character is an interesting character. The way it's presented is the classic thing. Everybody turns in the moonlight, and they had a way to mystically bring that out. There's a lot of places that character can go. Eventually, similar to Hulk, he gets control of it. He can change when he wants to, and all things like that. Also, similar stuff that you see in things like Underworld.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that maybe an older, more experienced werewolf can do that stuff. There's a lot of interesting places they can go with that. And again, Man-Thing, obviously, we've already said. I think there's a lot of potential there with the multiverse that they could do. Maybe I think we were expecting Secret Wars, opportunities to maybe see these characters in something like that. Elsa Bloodstone. I mean, they cast Laura Donnelly, who's great, who's also in the Nevers.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of potential for a lot of things. Oh, by the way, they even I don't expect this, but recent Deadpool stuff, they had her sort of get involved with him. There's a lot of places to do a lot of these things.
Well, Ian, the Human Comic Book Encyclopedia, thanks for joining. Let's go back to our own businesses, and we'll get back together for the She-Hulk. I think I'm going to see you on Friday.
You will see me
for a wedding. And Geekscapists, we're going to see you next week with a brand new Geekscape and a She-Hulk special. So just because our lives aren't slowing down and leaving us much room for Geekscape, this doesn't mean Geekscape's slowing down. You're still getting your Geekscapes. Thanks for doing this, Duty.
Sure.
Dudio. I was going to call you Duder, and I was going to just call you Duty. You're not Duty. You're dutiful, you're loyal, and you're awesome.
Duty.
But you are not Duty. But you Deuterinos out there watching and listening, thanks for being a part of this. And we'll catch you next time on Geekscape. Cool. Share this with your friends. Bye.
Bye.